But in our Vedic culture, the goal is to find peace and inner peace and happiness. So this prayer is very important. Om sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pasyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhavet. Om shanti, shanti, shanti. May all be prosperous and happy. May all be free from illness. May all see what is spiritually uplifting. May no one suffer. Om, peace, peace, peace. So with that, I will pass it over to our educational director for Vedic Friends, Dr. Raj Sampath.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to mention a little bit about Ram Bhakt before we get started. Ram Bhakt is the founder of Long Beach School of Yoga. He has studied and taught the practical and philosophical aspects of yogic life for over a decade. He was first introduced to Ayurvedic medicine by Dr. David Frawley while living in Yogaville Ashram. Due to his early studies in biology and immersion in Ayurveda and various yogic traditions, he's able to make complex spiritual concepts understandable to various populations. His book, A Seeker's Guide to the Yoga Sutras, Modern Reflections on the Ancient Journey, is a well-received summary of the main concepts of Patanjali Ashtanga Yoga. It is available in paperback and in audio format. Ram is an experienced and gentle teacher and student of yoga who lives and works under the philosophy of timeless wisdom, modern lifestyle, and connection to the inner light. He enjoys teaching various styles of classes and workshops at yoga studios, community centers, office environments, natural outdoor settings, and now online. So let's all welcome Ram Bhakt as he begins his discussion.
Thank you. Just a second. Let me see. Hi, everyone. If you don't mind tonight, may I do a mantra as well to begin? Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All right. So Namaste, Hari Om. Thank you for inviting me to give this talk. I have to admit that I prepared this talk last night and today, so I will do my best. I sometimes like to teach extemporaneously, but I saw some of the previous talks and they used some overheads, so I thought I would take this opportunity to introduce everyone to one of my new favorite tools, which is a mind map. And this is how I'm going to organize the talk today. So I want to first share that what I'm here to do as the speaker. Then I'll talk about the human condition. The talk title is Yoga, Science, and the Human Condition. So we're going to start with the human condition. Then we're going to go to science. And then we'll talk about how to relieve stress, which is a question that I heard in the last VFA talk. So I thought I'd expand on the tools that are within my knowledge scope about dealing with stress. Then I'm going to talk about yoga, and I'll mention some things about Ayurveda, which is also something that I believe is really important for the attainment of yoga and health of the body. So I'll say a few things about Ayurveda, and time permitting, I'll say a few things about the Yoga Sutras, which I authored, the translation and commentary that I published, which you guys referred to earlier. So, so what am I doing? You know, there are no perfect teachers. I think that anyone who is still in a body, is still living in this world, has karma that they are exhausting. They have their individual shortcomings and strengths, but there's no perfect teacher. There are times that I believe that one can become so attuned that they can feel what a seeker or a questioner or a student is asking, and they can intuit brilliant answers. And that can be a model of a great teacher, someone who's very open. In the context of tonight, you know, I may be a presenter, I may be a teacher, but really I'm just a pointer to the inner light. And in yoga, there's this concept that each of us has a store of knowledge, you know, from our past lives, from our connection to cosmic spirit, to really understand everything if we put the time and effort to seek. There are plenty of masters who never had a human teacher, and they learn from nature, they learn from life itself. So I'm here only to remind all of us of the wisdom of you know, the ages, which is inherent within life itself. So I want to inspire people and educate. I think that maybe many people have been exposed to yoga or heard the word yoga, but they may have different perceptions of what it is. So I want to sort of share broadly for people who are beginners or intermediate students or seekers on the path, what my understandings of the yoga is and the yoga tradition. So, you know, because language and knowledge shapes the way that we see the world. So, you know, Sanskrit is like one of these languages that has very deep terms which convey a very subtle reality. And this is the result of, you know, the Indian ancestors who have written the Vedas. Their expression of knowledge is what they understood from their deep dive into the mind. You know, and we say that in the West, there is a great work on the outer world and building in the external, and in the East, there's a lot of inner work and these, you know, the revealing of these deeper wisdoms. Of course, the West and the East need to both come together, and I think it's important for all of us to have both an inner understanding of spirit, mind, and consciousness, but also know how to manage our world and be active in the world. Not everyone is maybe primed to spend all of their life practicing yoga, or there may be different karmas which are involved in our lives. So we do the best that we can, and you know, basically having some exposure to all of these concepts in this lifetime, you know, might come to fruition in the next lifetime, that we come onto the path sooner and we attain to liberation. So the highest goal in life is this accumulation of wisdom and knowledge, the removal of suffering, and ultimately the liberation from the cycle of birth and death. You know, we keep coming into this life, we have these bodies, and we get sick, we get old, we have to work, you know, we have to take care of our children and raise our families and deal with so many things. So the optimistic view in the yogic tradition is that really the spirit is here to experience certain things to gain a certain level of knowledge and mastery of life. And then in our final lifetime, in our final incarnation, when we are ready to leave the body, when we die, we're able to really feel a amount of fulfillment so that the story doesn't continue. So the mindset and this tradition of yoga is about having an understanding of what are the guideposts, what are the experiences, what are the revelations that the spirit and the mind and the body and the self go through in the process of this spiritual evolution. So I want to just kind of explain more about mindset. Mindset is such a it's becoming more and more of an important topic, especially in the business world and even in regular life. I think we wake up in the morning and one day we have a good mindset, one day we have a bad mindset, and it changes the way we experience our day. So yoga is always pointing back to this yogic mindset. So as you practice yoga, when you say the word yoga, when you read a yoga book, when you see a Sanskrit term, this is all to bring you back to that experience of the tradition and the practice. So I am here to reignite for some people, to clarify, and to help establish or remind you of some of those principles of yogic life and yogic philosophy. So I hope I do a good job. Wish me luck. So let's talk about the human condition. So we have a mind, we have a body, we have this experience of karma, of our situation. Sorry, am I muted still?
You're good.
Okay. So we have our karma, we have society that we find ourselves in, we have our general inclinations, our usual personality. Are we attached to things? Are we do we have aversions to things? We have these. Are we ignorant? Do we have a lot of pride and jealousy? And in this life, the question is, are we going to reach our full potential? And why are we really here? And the yogic tradition, at least Patanjali, says that you are here to know your own power. You are here to experience the world, to play with the world, to understand how the world works. So what we start off with is this monkey mind, it seems, a mind that is constantly jumping around. It's thinking about the past, it's thinking about the future, it's unable to focus. But there's also this experience that when the mind, and in the yogi's experience is that when the mind becomes still, then there's an experience of expansion, there's an experience of peace. Do we need to think all the time? If you've ever had the experience of driving in your car and you just kind of zone out and you're not really there. But what's happening is that life is still happening. You are still functioning, and there's all this automatic, let's say intuitive or spontaneous activity that's happening. So in yoga, we ask, well, how much do I need to think about everything? The mind is an excellent tool, but it's something that sometimes we overuse. The thinking aspect of the mind, the planning aspect of the mind, the judging aspect of the mind. So in yoga, we're trying to understand how to manage this mind. And the Yoga Sutras is a book that is mostly about the mind. the capacities of the mind and how to manage the mind and how to work with the mind. So this is something that we all know about, but there's this mind. There's a part of you that you can feel the mind is moving, and it's thinking and it's saying things. Maybe you don't want to hear what it's saying. We want to understand how to manage these energies of the mind, how to focus the mind and make it powerful. The mind is also, I mean, the body and the mind are connected to each other. You know, the body that we have, it sometimes is lazy. You know, it gets inflamed and sick. There's different diseases that it gets. It can be over or undernourished. It's fidgety. You know, a lot of people can't sit still. Many people who I've trained in yoga, you know, you can see if you ask them to sit and meditate, they can't sit. They sit, but then they scratch their head, they move their body around, right? So that's fidgetiness. This is a symptom of energy in the nervous system, which has yet to become stabilized. You know, it's kind of randomly moving all over the place. Just like the mind moves randomly, sometimes the body is also moving randomly. And you see when people take yoga classes, hatha yoga classes, they experience, even though there is no talk of the mind, they do all of these yoga poses, we do all these yoga poses. There's ultimately an experience of the body at the end becoming so exhausted and tired and still that the mind also becomes exhausted, tired, and still. So that's the product of disciplining the body and working with the energies of the body. So it's very, you know, I want to make this sound as practical as possible. You know, if you have a body that is undisciplined, then the mind will become undisciplined. If you can discipline the body, you may be able to discipline the mind. Or if you discipline the mind, you might be able to discipline the body. That's a, excuse me. So that's the, where is this? So this is the situation that we have with the body. Then if we think about karma, you know, karma is one of these words that, again, is a Sanskrit term, which is very hard to define in English. So that's why Sanskrit is so important. Now, my lecture is not going to be full of Sanskrit terms, but sometimes they're necessary and important if you want to look these terms up. You know, so karma is kind of like your reality. What is your perception? What do you see? What do you experience? Which is different from other people's. So this karma is kind of like your genetics. You know, what kind of family do you have? What, are you tall? Are you short? Or do you have lots of hair or no hair? These are all part of your karma, right? And the types of parents that you have, sometimes the abilities that you have in your life, or the diseases that you get. There are astrologers who can see these things in our charts. Astrology is actually a very interesting topic, but maybe we can talk about it later. So this is also part of the human condition. No one would deny that we come to this world not always on an even footing, or we all have a different entry point, right? That's our karma. Through yoga, we are trying to understand how to modify our karma, how to resolve our karma, how to understand our karma, how to work with our karma. Also, we have a certain entanglement with society. So there is work, there's money, economics, there's family and responsibility. You know, we have to deal with the country that we live in, you know, the rulers of the society that we live in. So this is all part of the human condition. And each of us, as I mentioned, we have these particular hang-ups. You know, there's certain ways of thinking which are not always beneficial. You know, it seems like there's certain emotions that are in some people that other people don't. And this can also be remedied and modulated through yoga practice. And yoga study is something which can remove certain ignorances and certain habits of the mind. I can tell you from personal experience, and I guess I don't want to boast, but you know, when I was younger, I had learned to be very judgmental. And I think whenever I met someone, I was thinking, you know, where did you go to school? You know, I'm assessing, are they attractive? Are they unattractive? And there was a lot of thought going in my mind as soon as I met someone. But once I started practicing more yoga, once I lived in an ashram for a long time in different ashrams, you know, I started to realize, why is my mind doing this? I'm supposed to be in a shiny, happy place, an ashram. And through this experience and daily meditation and reflecting on what had happened to me that day, these types of habitual thinking started to change. So it's not a death sentence, or people don't have to live with these ways of thinking. It's possible through experience and knowledge that you can change your thinking. So in this human condition, what is our goal? You know, we want to achieve our full potential. You know, we want to, like I said before, we want to exhaust or refine our desires. You know, we have these different desires, and there may be things that you have wanted to do in the past and you do them. And then you realize, okay, now I don't want to do that anymore. Right? So now your karma changes, your reality changes. If you are somebody who likes to drink a lot, you know, after enough bouts of throwing up or getting into fights with people, or insomnia, or physical and mental pain, eventually some people realize, maybe this is something I don't want to do anymore. So that karma changes. You know, and basically what the Hindu Dharma yoga tradition provides us is the cure to all of this. Again, language, culture, all of these things are containers for ancient wisdom that has worked for millennia, you know, and that's why this knowledge is still passed on. The Dharma is like the law of nature. It's the patterns of societal reality. You know, like part of the Dharma, for example, is the idea of not telling lies. You know, if you're always telling lies, then if you sit to meditate, for example, you will always think about, oh, will this person realize that I lied? There's so many things in your mind that will haunt you about all these little lies, that you will understand deep down this idea of telling lies is probably a bad idea, or stealing, you know, or being promiscuous. You know, it just creates a lot of havoc in the inner self. So Dharma is another word for, you know, ethics or natural law. And what we're really talking about overall here is the Dharma, understanding what are the ideas which can help us to achieve our potential. And, you know, on another basic level, we want to connect to the rhythm of life, to time and nature. Some people adapt well to change, and life is so full of change. Nature is always changing. Our bodies is changing. Our situations in life is always changing. So we need to understand how to ride these waves of life. And that's also a way to attain your full potential. There is, in psychology, many have heard of Maslow's pyramid, you know? So Maslow talks about what do they call it? The pyramid of Maslow's pyramid of, I don't remember what it's called, but there's these different layers to his stages of growth. You know,
Hierarchy of needs.
yeah, hierarchy of needs. That's right. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, we have physiological needs. We need to take care of our food, our shelter, clothing. Then we have safety needs. We need to be safe. We need, on a more subtle level, we need love and belonging. Then maybe if we're being of service to the world, then we have esteem. You know, you feel a certain level of confidence and purpose in the world. So you have that, and ultimately we get to this self-realization, the desire to become the most that one can be. So sometimes the more subtle teachings in yoga are lost on people because they are so caught up in these physiological needs or safety needs. And there's certain things that we are always incomplete with that we're working on. So everyone is on this continuum in different degrees. But this self-actualization is what yoga is really trying to point us towards. The entire yogic lifestyle and the principles of yoga can help you achieve all of these things and work your way up the pyramid. And there's also other modern psychological movements like positive psychology that talk about community and involvement and purpose and, you know, positive emotions, which really align with many of the yogic teachings. So I will, you'll see, if you look into positive psychology, you'll see many corollaries with yoga. And I think that many of the positive psychologists had trained in yoga or studied yoga to come up with those ideas. So in a ultimate layer, ultimate dimension, you know, we can say that we are here to experience the world. We're here to create, to enjoy, to understand, to share, and to learn. In tantric philosophy, you know, we talk about Shiva and Shakti. So Shiva is consciousness, it is awareness, and Shakti is nature. It's the physical world. So when your consciousness, when your awareness, when your mind and your senses experience the world, touch nature, that's when experience happens. So in meditation, if you get to this stage where the mind becomes so still that you stop hearing the world, experiencing the world, you are going to be liberated from this experience of anything. You go into this space of pure consciousness. So this whole of life is predicated on this idea that there is this consciousness and it is interacting with the world. And any time that you go back into this space of pure consciousness, you are free from the entanglement with nature. So that's what's happening in yoga. We're practicing how to create a space and a sort of separation between our senses, our mind, and the deeper self, which is witnessing all these changes. And what happens is that this play of going in, going out, going in and out changes our relationship with this life. So this is kind of just a basic idea of the human condition. You know, many of these things may be spontaneous, is my point. A lot of these ideas are things that most people may understand already, right? That's the human condition. It's universal to all of us. So what does science say about all this? Science has this idea of cellular evolution. So they talk about how a single cell, I don't know, there was a cosmic ocean and there was electricity, and then a proton and a couple proteins got together and they made a cell, and then this cell became a little microcosmic, a small one cellular organism. Then this one cellular organism ate another cellular organism. It became a two cell, became more complex. Ultimately, what we have in the body is different cells which are differentiated to become different organs. These organs in the body do different functions in the body. And then they use the blood to communicate with each other. Then what evolved is a nervous system, a spinal cord, which organizes all of these organs and cells as well. So the highest level of the organization of the body, in one book, which I mentioned in my, it's in the bibliography of my books, is in Antonio Damasio's book, Self Comes to Mind. He basically says that there is a core consciousness that is at the highest sort of organizational level of this whole being. So when you look at yoga practice, we are trying to really ascend the nervous system to the highest organizational level, so that we can understand how that we make our choices and how to regulate the body, the mind, and ultimately to be more effective and make the choices that we want in the world in a healthy way. So this nervous system, it has different dimensions. It has the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, which bring us into different states. When we need to run away from a tiger, then we need our parasympathetic nervous system so that we can run from the tiger. When we need to rest and relax, parasympathetic nervous system that sends blood to the organs and gives us rest. So in yoga, there's actually also this idea of increasing the parasympathetic tone, or being more in a parasympathetic state, because sometimes we overstress things that we don't need to. So when people are stressed, they have shallow breath, which can be modified by pranayama. And the other thing that's important about this nervous system is that there's another term called psychoneuroimmunology. It's the idea that the mind and the physical body are interconnected. There's many small cellular signals which are all interconnected between the immune system and the mind and the nervous system. So we are working on that dimension in yoga as well. So the nervous system is important to us. This nervous system is affecting the way that you see the world. Also, part of life is that we grow old and we age. So our spine is an indication of our health. If your spine is tall, then your organs are free to move around, your breathing is better, your general mood is better. So yoga addresses this. So I talked about the multi-cell to human, and homeostasis is a big term in science. Homeostasis is the ability to maintain a balance within your being. So in our world, we have suffering, we have evolution, we have survival. The world is impermanent. Love is impermanent. You can't hold on to love forever with other people. Marriages and relationships sometimes come and go. Success comes and goes. There's natural disasters. So this might be one way that science, it's a very simplistic way. I'm not going to go into quantum physics and things like that, but basically, these are certain things that we can say generally in the cause and effect world of science, the materialistic world of science. So I think, as I mentioned, someone in the previous talk asked me about how to relieve stress. I'm going to go through some of these things quickly. Diet can cause problems in your stress. So we need to understand our Ayurvedic constitution. I can say a little bit about Ayurveda later, and know which foods are appropriate for your body type or your cultural constitution. Maybe you grow up in a certain country, your genetics, your family, your culture has a certain type of food. So we want to follow the natural rhythms of our body and what kind of foods are appropriate for us. That can always cause stress if you're, drinking too much sugar or coffee or doing drugs or smoking. These things can cause issues with the body in general. If your diet is simple food, or if you eat less, you eat fresh, organic, and clean food, sometimes you fast. This can always help to alleviate stress. People who fast, they often feel that they have more energy, or their mind becomes more clear. They can hop out of bed with more energy. It's not recommended for everyone, and it's not something you need to overdo, but it's a great way to reset your body, reset your energies. As far as behavior, it's important to think about what type of stimuli comes into your system. Not only the food, but also your senses. What type of information are you taking? So we want positive information, positive stimuli, positive things. If we're always watching war and fights and suffering, then our mind will be full of those things. So it helps to be mindful of what type of media you consume. And I mentioned the dharmic or adharmic activities, things which are against positive human nature and growth, always end up making more problems. So I'll talk a little bit about the yamas and niyamas, which are part of the Yoga Sutras later on. So our behavior we can change in order to affect our stress. Knowledge can help us. When you read sacred texts or you practice inquiry and jnana yoga or raja yoga, it changes your optimism. It gives you a different state of being. You feel mindfulness and transcendence. These can help you alleviate stress. Satsang is when you are in the company of other spiritual seekers, and you read about spiritual talks. Can also be like a personal satsang. Even watching YouTube videos of speakers. That's like a way to alleviate stress, to elevate the mind. Rest, like I said, fasting from food, fasting from information, not listening to the news always in your car, spending time in nature. Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is basically the practice of lying in Shavasana for about 10 minutes or so. And it has many benefits to the body and the mind. So it's like a yogi power nap. Yoga Nidra is a type of yogic sleep. So it's when you are conscious, but you are also asleep. And this has great healing benefits to the psyche. So in case you've been experienced it before, here's a reminder: if you're ever stressed, try to do some Yoga Nidra. Find the Yoga Nidra guided body scan meditations on the internet. Listen to nice music. It's a great way to relieve stress. So know yourself and your environment. Work on improving yourself. Go outside, connect to others, talk to someone, help someone, be of service. Try to participate in the world to get your mind off of what you're stressed about. Yoga itself, we have these 4 different types of yoga. There's karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and raja yoga and jnana yoga. So, you know, karma yoga is like doing your bed, making your bed, cleaning your house, stewardship, connecting with your family, you know, talking to your parents, taking care of someone who's in need, being of service. That can always alleviate our stress, you know, our attachment to our mind and our ego and what's going on. Bhakti yoga, you know, the yoga of devotion and love, you know, even expressing love to your friends, to your spouse, your family, your coworkers, your pets, mantra yoga and kirtan. These are all ways that we can clear the mind of stress. I hope I'm not speaking too fast. So Raja Yoga is this practice of the eight-limbed path. And I want to mention first that Hatha Yoga, all the physical exercises that we do, is preparation for meditation. And when we learn to make the body still, then we're able to go deeper and deeper in meditation. So the purpose of asana is to prepare our body to become still and to go deeper into meditation. When you do more meditation, then you can manage your stress better. And jnana yoga is the idea of identifying with the pure spirit, resting in just pure consciousness. It's cultivated through faith and through affirmations, through inspiration, through teaching, through study, and through satsang. So this is the other way that we can, another dimension of yoga which helps with relieving stress. Many people will say that my yoga or my meditation is gardening or doing the dishes. You know, this is what we call the flow state. It's when you are engaged, you're challenged, you're focused, and you feel a sense of timelessness. So doing something that's sort of repetitive or something that takes some kind of focus. You know, if you have a hobby, you'll know what this is like, the flow state. So go back to your hobbies, do something that you love to help you come out of your stress. Do some yoga before bed, some stretches, some breathing exercises, pranayama or journaling to take things off of your mind and put them on paper. When you take things out of your mind and put them on paper, then it feels like you can deal with it later and there's more space created in the mind. Okay, so what is yoga? You know, yoga is primarily a psychology. It's this idea of integrating your inner and outer world. It's about ultimately becoming happy, which is what we all want, attaining knowledge and growth, understanding the truth. It's a whole language and worldview. It's the idea of becoming responsible for your karma. You know, knowing that when you pay attention to your choices, when you pay attention to your actions, when you take time to reflect and meditate, you have to process all these actions. So you learn through yoga how to become more responsible. Learning, again, the Dharma, studying sacred texts, all these things is part of understanding yoga and practicing yoga. Even the study of Sanskrit is a form of yoga. You know, the 8 limbs of yoga is often discussed, and in my book, I go into the 8 limbs and I explain more about them. So these are different stages in refining the mind and attaining knowledge, which is maybe not even in your own experience. So this, you know, we have the yamas and niyamas. I don't think I'm going to be able to go through all of these. There are even 10. There's some systems that in the Upanishads which speak of 10 yamas. or restraints. These are all suggestions of how to interact with the world. The niyamas are also observances, cleanliness, contentment, discipline, surrender. There's the 10 that comes from the Upanishads. So the yamas and niyamas are your ethics and the way that you interact with the world. Once you have a sense of peace, where you have less of these lies and entanglements, and the mind is more simplified by observing yamas and niyamas, it's easier to make your body still. So you do asana, you attain an asana. That means you can sit still. Then what you'll notice is your breath is moving. So the yogis then do some pranayama. They focus on their breath. You can do active pranayama, or you can just visualize the breath. Then what happens is a stage called pratyahara, where the senses, which are usually experiencing the world, stop experiencing the world. So you do pranayama, you sit, suddenly everything disappears. What comes to your awareness then is that there's this mind. So you can use this mind to focus on something. And that's what is suggested. Focus on one thing, concentrate on something, choose an object to meditate. Ultimately, you come to a stage where the focus and concentration becomes spontaneous. That's the state of meditation, where you are spontaneously basically concentrating or spontaneously sitting and being. Samadhi is then the eighth limb. So it's the last stage. Samadhi is a moment where, let's say you're focusing on a flower, and you're focusing on this flower, and then you meditate on this flower. After, let's say, an hour or two of focusing on this flower in your mind, you become the flower. You understand everything there is about this flower. You get knowledge of flower knowledge comes to you spontaneously. So this is, and there's other forms of samadhi, but it's essentially touching pure consciousness. Consciousness is, it's like the fabric of life. It's the matrix of information that you see, that organizes everything. Like I said, we can organize the nervous system. That's the power of consciousness. But there is consciousness in the beauty of a flower. There is consciousness in everything which tries to organize itself, everything which tries to express itself. So in samadhi, you can connect to the essence of all of these objects. So spontaneous knowledge comes to the yogi in these deepest states of meditation. How much time do I have left?
It's actually time for questions now.
Okay. Let me just see if I can find one other thing that I'd like to share with you guys. There's also the pancha koshas, which are panchamaya koshas, which are different dimensions of our being. So yoga works on these different dimensions: the energetic layer, the mind layer, the wisdom layer, the inner bliss layer, the food. This part of our, the body needs exercise. I mentioned about pratyahara. I'll just take 2 more minutes. I mentioned pratyahara, which is the withdrawal of the senses. This heals the energy, our energetic body. We work on the mind through meditation. And another thing I wanted to mention, I want to at least expand these things so you guys can read them at your leisure when you pause the video on replay. In Ayurveda, we learn about what is our constitution, what is our innate prakriti, which kind of diseases are likely to happen depending on our Ayurvedic constitution. So it's important to know something about Ayurveda so that you can prepare the body for meditation. And there's subtle aspects of Ayurveda, which are all very powerful and important. And the last thing I wanted to mention is some of my translations of the different Yoga Sutras. So just to say a few things, for more advanced practitioners, in chapter 4 of the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali talks about going beyond the mind. So I'll just read a couple of these. Karmic tendencies exist due to the relationship of cause and effect and the association of the mind with objects. When ignorance, the cause of selfish actions, memory, the effects of actions, and the mind's association with nature disappear, so do impressions and desires. So this is all karma. Our experience is karma, but when we separate this relation, I'm sorry. Yeah, the mind's association, when the mind's association with nature disappears, so do impressions and desires. So there's this whole space between what reality we experience and what happens when we separate our mind from nature. Where do our desires go? Where does our karma go in that space? Okay, I will stop here. I want to leave some space, time for questions and answers. So sorry if I ran out of time or I didn't get to go through all of these things, but I hope that I was able to ignite your interest in yoga and the broader tradition. Namaste.
Excellent presentation. Thank you, Ramji. Very wonderful. So Raj, you have some questions there? You're on mute.
I was wondering if there's any questions from the audience. Prakash, has there been any questions from the audience?
No, I have a question. Bhakt, thank you first of all, because you've presented so many concepts really concisely and really in a way that's so understandable. I've been practicing yoga for years, and I've followed a really good diet, learned about my body, and constitution has been huge, because when I don't eat right, I feel the afflictions in my nervous system. Now, having practiced and done this, I still find myself in huge anxiety. So things will happen in the world, or something that I have my body starts to react, and I'll start to get really, really anxious. And could you speak to that anxiety? Like, what, in your experience, what would be, the right approach or the right portal?
Well, some people have a tendency more towards anxiety. People of Vata Prakriti. Are you Vata by any chance?
Yes, totally
Okay.
Vata.
Okay, so that happens. So you need to be much more careful about having grounding food. Not skipping meals, trying to limit your movement a little bit. Again, Vata types tend to move like the wind, so they're constantly moving. This anxiety, there's different ways of dealing with anxiety. Sometimes anxiety is because there's tension and anxiety that's stored in the body. So if you can get more into your body, then you may be able to release anxiety that's in your mind.
Yeah.
Or the opposite, as I was saying, if you move too much, then that's not the way you want to go. Maybe you want to slow down. So like I mentioned, this mind map is something that I use to help me manage my ideas. And I mentioned journaling, just writing everything down, taking it out of your mind and putting it on paper and looking at it, seeing a bigger picture of what's really important and what's not. Yeah, and then sometimes, just being overly aware of what's going on in the world is anxiety provoking. We have information overload nowadays. So I would recommend taking that fast from information, or doing the most simple, easy, and profound yoga practice ever. Take if you can, 2 hours. Sit under a tree in nature with a notebook or a book that you like. Be in nature and just let nature harmonize you. You know, so if you spend too much time away from nature, that can hurt.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you, Ramji. We have a question from Vaibhav Gupta ji in the chat. How do we apply teachings of yoga to choose our life partner and have a happy marriage? That is very important question.
Okay, well, my Ayurveda teacher taught me, I mean, I'm not married yet, but my Ayurveda teacher told me that who you marry, you know, again, this actually goes back to, it's more of a Ayurveda question than a yoga question. I'm going to give you an Ayurvedic point of view. You know, these different types, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, they have tendencies and they butt heads at different times. So sometimes, you know, they say like a Pitta personality is someone who's very judgmental and they're very organized. So if they are living with a Kapha type who's more slow, you know, and they, you know, they're trying to leave to go somewhere and the Kapha type is too slow to get ready, it can cause, you know, anger and frustrations in Pitta. Or if a Pitta type is dating a Vata types, you know, they like to move around a lot and they buy little things and their mind may be scattered a lot. So Pitta types can get sort of annoyed by that type of personality. You know, but Pitta types and a Pitta type, they can get together and they can argue with each other and make good business together. So that sometimes works. You know, what my teacher said is that you can be with the same Prakriti, you know, Vata, Vata, Pitta, Pitta, Kapha, Kapha, and you might have a good life together because you agree, you understand, you do the same things. But then that type of life is not so interesting. There's no compassion. There's no ability to learn about what these little triggers are within yourself so that you can understand how to maintain your balance. So our life partners are not supposed to be perfect. You know, we want to, you know, partners are to teach each other compassion, to teach each other patience. You know, if from the perspective of yoga, you know, maybe if you have a spiritual practice, you want to find someone who has at least some respect and some similar religious or spiritual beliefs. So if you're a yoga practitioner, you know, maybe you want to choose somebody who has some experience in yoga. You know, if you're a vegetarian, you know, you may want to date someone or live with someone who is also vegetarian. But these are all things that can also be talked out. You know, I think relationships are just about communication. So anyone that you meet, or even if you're arranged marriage, there's always the ability to learn from each other and to communicate and to grow. Use any relationship as an opportunity to grow. You know, even with other people, everyone, we're here to rub each other and to learn from each other. Yeah, so think about, you know, look more into Ayurveda, find out about your own temperament, and then you can kind of decide, you know, oh, I want a Kapha type, you know, because I want someone who's more inclined toward loving, compassion, and easygoing, you know, or I want a Pitta person who will push me more and you know, will be serious about getting everything done. I mean, it's not that different types don't have these characteristics, but that's their traits, you know. Or hey, I want to date a Vata personality so I can see the world and travel and fly everywhere. So think about what it is that you really want to do with your life and then choose accordingly.
Nicely put, Ramji. Well, another question is the PowerPoint available for everyone?
The PowerPoint, I can give you guys my email. Just email me at info@lbsoy.com. I put it in the text, and I will give you the PowerPoint. No problem.
Right.
Give you access to my mind map.
Thank you. And you can share me later. I can put on the Facebook comments. Thank you.
Sure.
Raji. Raji, you're on mute.
Yeah, yes.
Do you have any question?
No, I think our time's up right now for questions.
Prabhuji?
Thank you so much, Ram Bhakt. You did a fantastic job, and I'm sure everyone, from all the information that you presented, gathered something that they can take home with them as a tool to put in their toolbox to help them tomorrow. So thank you very much, and thank you all for participating in this wonderful program, and we'll keep you updated on our next event. So Ramji, if you can stay on just a little bit at the end of the call, that'd be greatly appreciated. So good night, everyone. Hare Krishna, Namaste, Santi Santi.
Thank you all guests. You are free to go. Thanks for joining. You can have update on our Facebook and by email, of course. Thank you again. Vijayji, are you there? Vijay Ganapaji. Okay, very good. Now, okay, let me stop the face.
So thank you, Ram. That was really very enlightening. Very
Right.
special.
Yeah, that was really good. It's covered a lot of good information.